How's it going, everybody? It's your boy Ty_Drums here, bringing you guys another solo beer review for Wandering Alcoholics Reviews. And today we're bringing back the beer comparison series. It's been a while since we've done a beer comparison, and we've got our reigning champion, the beer comparison beer that's usually the standard for these, the pub beer lager, being compared up against the Shock Top Belgian White Ale. Now, both these beers clock in just around 5%. 5% on the dot for pub beer, 5.2% for the Shock Top. And when it comes down to it, lager versus ale, a light but still orange flavor versus a light pear flavor. So, fruity light beers, but not quite like Gosses. You know, those are actual fruit beers. These just have good taste, easy to drink, light, and I just wanted to compare the two. So let's go ahead and crack open a pub beer and start. Skull. Oh yeah, that is refreshing. Very refreshing, crisp right off the bat. I feel like the one thing with the pub beer is that it doesn't have a lot of flavor intensity. It's a very light pear, but it also tastes really like light but juicy, if that makes sense. Like that, there's not much sweetness to the pear either. It's like a natural flavor, but it goes very well with the juicy refreshment that the brew also brings. And this is consistently a brew that has been nice and cheap. It's been like, for an 18-pack, I get this for about $14.99 at the local grocery store, which is a huge, awesome deal. And it kind of correlates as well with the Shock Top, because I get Shock Top at Walmart. It's a 15 rack for roughly around the same price, $14, $14.99. So you're getting a bit more for your value when you get the pub beer, whereas you're getting a bit higher of a percentage and maybe even some more flavor with the Shock Top. Now, let's go ahead and crack open the Shock Top and see what it tastes like. Let's also drink some water to cleanse the palate. And, alright, let's go ahead and have our first sip of the Shock Top. Skull. Alright. That one definitely has, like, the similar kind of, like, watered down, kind of whitewashed flavor. But when it comes to the Shock Top, it is a Belgian white, like a white kind of wheat ale. So when we get that light, bright kind of white taste, it is to be expected from this kind of beer. With that being said, there is a slight orange flavor to this, as it is meant to be for the Shock Top. But overall, I would say it is a bit more on the nose as opposed to the pub beer. So right away, you know, I can see why, you know, these beers are similar to each other, but also different. And they're both made from, you know, breweries. 10 Barrel Brewing. These guys are based out of Fairfield, California, and Bend, Oregon. So both the California and Oregon location brewery, which is awesome, because I assumed, you know, in the past that these guys were based straight out of Bend, Oregon. But they also have a base of operations in Fairfield, which is decently like an hour or two away from me. So that's really cool. I'd love to try this on tap sometime, because I've showcasing a lot of it in the can here. But let's go ahead and get into the comparison process here. We're going to do 3 different rounds for this. And basically each round is going to be first round flavor. I'm going to see which one I like better. Next one's going to be the body. And then, if necessary, we'll do the tiebreaker, the final round, to see which one of these beers is going to take the beer comparison win. Will pub beer continue to reign supreme, or will Shock Top take over and replace the pub beer? I don't know. Let's see what happens. Going into the flavor round first, I think both these beers have a pretty light flavor overall. Barely noticeable. Also feeling like a watered down kind of flavor as well for both of these brews. For the pub beer lager, you get a bit of a like pear flavor that goes very well with the watery refreshment taste, so it can be tough to pick out. But when you get those notes of pear, it is pretty nice. I will say that. Other than that, though, I think also when it comes to the shock top, I feel like what's going on, there's a bit more of a flavor palette happening, a bit more of a noticeable orange flavor, and that kind of white wheat flavor is also very much present. And I feel like the flavor, like you said, it's a bit more on the nose as opposed to the pear kind of being in the bit of the background of the body, I guess. So I would say the first round of this, I'm going to give it to the shock top. Nice white wheat orange flavor, which honestly I wasn't a fan of it in years past, but now I've kind of come around to it. Especially now, last couple days or so, you've been having like a heat wave in California in October, so it's nice to kind of have these kind of light beers again. Moving on to the body, though, I feel like the pub beer definitely has a more distinct crispness and refreshment that is more present because, unlike with the white ale, this lager definitely has more pop. Yeah, it's a lot more noticeable. You can really feel it. Definitely feels like you're drinking a beer. But it doesn't have any of the heaviness or brutal bitterness of like a heavier beer. So you can really enjoy it regardless. When it comes to the shock top I feel has less of a body presence and almost like a carbonation or seltzer kind of mouthfeel at times, which to me is a little interesting, a little strange. But overall still pretty nice. Definitely not as strong on the body as the pub beer. So round two, I'm going to give this one to the pub beer for round two. Definitely has a better body than the shock top. Where it was a bit close in the flavor round, I think the body is definitely more defined with the pub beer. And that brings us into the final round. And usually, in the solo reviews, especially on my streams as well, I like to talk about the consistency of brews, which both these beers have been out here for just over 5 minutes. 7.5 minutes in the recording. So we're going to see how these beers have deprecated over time, which one's still good, which one's kind of noticeably not as fresh. So let's start with the shock top. I feel like the shock top isn't as strong on the body, doesn't have as much of that kind of carbonated, seltzery mouthfeel. That's mostly gone. And not as much of a white wheat taste as when you first crack it open. I think that's very noticeable at the start and then starts to, dissipate as time goes on. So that is what I think for the shock top. Its consistency there. Now let's move on to the pub beer. I feel like with the pub beer, it definitely still has its body, with the flavor of the pears really not that noticeable at all. So, on one end you have a beer that it still has a good amount of flavor, but not as much body presence with the shock top. And then with the pub beer, you have a beer that still feels refreshing and crisp and bitter, but not really tasting as much of anything. Still feels good to drink though, for sure. Definitely a solid mouthfeel. Whereas that mellowness on the shock top is more noticeable. I feel like for this here, I'm going to give the winner of this beer comparison to the pub beer. I got to give it up to this one. The final round, the body on this is still strong, super nice to drink. And, on a hot day, it's not necessarily about something that's super flavorful as much as it is refreshing and easy to drink. This one's not as easy to drink as the shock top, but it feels more satisfying to drink as well. So I'm leaning towards that. But, I figured I'd do another beer comparison for you guys. It's been a while. Got more pub beers. We'll try and do more diverse beer comparisons. Besides just the pub beer, of course. But, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. And I will see you guys in the next one. As always, remember to pillage responsibly, my friends, and skäl. Take care, everybody.